The table gleamed as though it had been staged for a magazine spread, crystal glasses catching the warm glow of candlelight, silverware aligned with almost obsessive precision. I stood back, smoothing the edge of the white linen cloth, forcing myself to breathe evenly. Tonight was supposed to feel like love, like celebration, like 10 years of promises kept. But beneath the polish, something gnawed at me. I lit the last candle and watched the flame waver, fragile yet stubborn. It reminded me of us, always flickering, never quite extinguished. My hands trembled slightly as I adjusted the roses in the vase. 10 years should feel like certainty, but all I felt was the weight of pretending. Daniel's voice floated from upstairs, casual and detached. "Almost ready?" he called, as though time and effort were nothing but a background detail. I forced a smile he couldn't yet see. "Nearly," I replied. Though the word tasted hollow, the house was quiet, too quiet, except for the low hum of music I had chosen carefully. Something soft, romantic, designed to cover the silence between us. I wanted this night to be different, to bridge the distance that had grown like a shadow across our marriage. Yet every detail I perfected seemed only to remind me how fragile it all was. I caught my reflection in the dining room mirror, a woman in a fitted dress, her hair pinned carefully, her lips painted red. She looked the part of a wife who had it all, but her eyes betrayed her, eyes that no longer trusted the man she had once given everything to. The sound of Daniel's footsteps descending the stairs pulled me from my thoughts. He appeared in the doorway, sharp in his dark suit, smile rehearsed, gaze cool. He looked like the man I had fallen in love with, but I knew better now. "Perfect, Claire," he said, scanning the room as if evaluating a stage. His approval carried the weight of judgment, never affection. I nodded, suppressing the chill crawling along my spine. As we took our seats, the candles flickered again, their flames straining in the faint draft. The night had begun, and already I sensed it would not end the way I had planned. Daniel poured the wine with deliberate care, as though every drop mattered more than the words he rarely spoke. The candlelight caught in the deep red liquid, making it look thicker than it should have, like something too heavy to drink. He lifted his glass, his eyes locking on mine, his smile too sharp to feel warm. "To 10 years," he said smoothly, his tone carrying the easy charm that had fooled so many before. 10 years of loyalty, patience, and sacrifice. The way he emphasized sacrifice was subtle, but his gaze lingered on me, letting the word pierce like a needle beneath my skin. I raised my glass, keeping my expression steady. "To us," I replied, though my voice felt thinner than I intended. He chuckled softly, swirling his wine. "To Claire," he continued, "the woman who has mastered the art of endurance." His smirk was faint, almost invisible, but I caught it. To anyone else, it would sound like admiration, a husband's affectionate teasing. But to me, it was a reminder of the nights I stayed silent, of the wounds that never left visible scars. I forced a smile, clinking my glass against his. The crystal rang out, a fragile note hanging in the air longer than it should have. Dinner unfolded slowly, the clatter of silverware echoing against the silence he refused to fill. Now and then, Daniel would lean back in his chair, watching me the way one might observe a painting, assessing, critiquing, never simply appreciating. He praised the roast, complimented the setting, but each word carried an edge, as if reminding me I existed to meet his standards. "You always did have a talent for appearances," he said finally, cutting into his food, "making everything look perfect, even when it's not." My chest tightened, but I kept my smile fixed. His words dripped like venom disguised as honey. This was his game, speaking truths in riddles, making me question whether I was imagining the cruelty. I sipped my wine to steady my breath. The evening was only beginning, yet already I felt trapped in a performance with no escape. And then, as the silence pressed heavier between us, the doorbell rang. The shrill sound of the doorbell sliced through the heavy silence that had settled between us. I froze, fork halfway to my mouth, the interruption so sudden it felt almost staged. Daniel's eyes flicked toward the door, sharp startled, a flicker of something fear. Perhaps, crossing his face before his expression smoothed back into control. "I'll get it," I said quickly, already rising from my chair. The relief of moving, of breaking the suffocating rhythm of the evening, carried me to the hallway. When I opened the door, the cool night air brushed against my skin, carrying with it the scent of rain. And there she stood, a woman, mid-30s perhaps, with hair tucked neatly behind her ears and a gaze that pinned me in place. Her smile was polite, but her eyes told another story, calculated, searching. "Good evening," she said softly. "I'm sorry to intrude. I was hoping to speak with Daniel." The sound of his name on her lips sent a ripple through me. My grip tightened on the doorframe. "And you are?" I asked, keeping my tone level. Before she could answer, Daniel appeared behind me. "Evelyn," he said flatly, the warmth stripped from his voice. His jaw tightened, and I felt the tension radiating from him. Evelyn's smile widened, almost amused. "It's been a long time," she replied, her voice smooth, deliberate. She stepped past me as though she belonged here, her heels clicking softly against the floor. I glanced at Daniel, but he avoided my eyes, his posture stiff. "What are you doing here?" he asked, low and clipped. "Unfinished business," she said simply, letting the words hang in the air like smoke. Then her gaze shifted to me. "And you must be Claire. I've heard so much." Her tone carried no malice, yet the way she looked at me felt invasive, like she was peeling back layers I hadn't meant to reveal. I forced a polite smile. "Would you like to join us?" I asked, though the question burned my throat. Evelyn's eyes sparkled. "I'd love to." Daniel opened his mouth, ready to protest, but the words died before they reached the air. I watched him, watched the war flicker behind his composure, and realized this woman's presence was more than inconvenient. It was dangerous. As we returned to the dining room, the candles flickered once more, shadows dancing higher on the walls. Evelyn settled into her chair across from us, her smile steady, her eyes sharp. The perfect dinner had shattered, and I knew this night was only beginning. The dining room felt smaller now, as though Evelyn's arrival had stolen the air from its corners. The candles that once cast warmth now stretched shadows long across the walls, distorting faces, exaggerating movements. Evelyn sat gracefully, her back straight, her hands folded neatly around her glass, as if she belonged at the table more than I did. "So," Evelyn began lightly, her voice carrying the confidence of someone who knew far more than she intended to share. 10 years. Quite the milestone. Her eyes lingered on me, then slid toward Daniel with a knowing curve of her lips. Daniel forced a chuckle, though I noticed the twitch in his jaw. "Yes," he said. 10 years of stability." He reached for my hand across the table, but his grip was firm, too firm, as though daring me to flinch. Evelyn tilted her head. "Stability. Interesting choice of word." She sipped her wine slowly, her gaze never leaving Daniel's. "Not happiness? Not passion? Just stability?" The silence that followed pressed against me like a weight. I studied Daniel's face, searching for the warmth of a husband proud of his marriage. Instead, I saw a man cornered, straining to keep control. "Every marriage," he said finally, voice even but tight, "has its balance. Claire understands that." The way he spoke my name felt less like acknowledgement and more like possession. I nodded weakly, though inside something twisted. Evelyn's smile deepened, satisfaction flickering in her eyes. She leaned closer, elbows resting on the table. Balance can be a fragile thing. One wrong move and it all tips. Her words seemed harmless on the surface, but Daniel stiffened. His fork clattered softly against his plate. I watched them, his guarded stance, her deliberate provocations, and realized there was a history between them, one layered with secrets I wasn't meant to know. The way Daniel refused to meet my eyes only confirmed it. My appetite vanished. I felt like an outsider at my own table, as though the anniversary dinner had become their stage, and I, merely the audience. The shadows stretched higher, the candles burning lower, and with each passing second, Evelyn's presence grew heavier, more dangerous. I swallowed hard, already dreading what she might say next. I excused myself with a weak smile, muttering something about needing more wine. My hand shook as I carried the empty bottle into the kitchen, the candlelight fading behind me. Away from their gazes, I exhaled, pressing my palms against the counter. The quiet should have soothed me, but it only amplified the storm building inside. The soft click of heels followed. I turned, startled, to find Evelyn standing in the doorway, her figure framed by the dim light. She moved with ease, as though she had walked this path before, as though she belonged here more than I ever had. "You don't know him, Claire," she said quietly, almost gently. "Not really." Her words sliced through the fragile wall I had built around myself. "Excuse me?" I forced a laugh, hoping to dismiss her intrusion, but Evelyn stepped closer, her voice low, deliberate. "Daniel isn't who you think he is. He wasn't with me, and he isn't with you." She paused, her eyes sharp. "There are things he's done, things you'd never forgive if you knew." My pulse raced. "You're lying," I whispered. Though the conviction faltered in my throat, Evelyn tilted her head, studying me with unsettling calm. "He has a temper. A dangerous one. Ask yourself, Claire, how many times have you felt afraid in your own home, even if you never admitted it?" Her words struck deep, dragging up memories I had buried. The slammed doors, the bruising grip on my arm that he called an accident, the way his anger lingered long after his apologies. I clutched the counter to steady myself. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you deserve to know," she said simply. "And because if you don't open your eyes now, you may not get another chance." A floorboard creaked behind us. Evelyn froze. My blood ran cold. Slowly, I turned toward the shadow in the doorway. Daniel stood there, silent, his face half lit, unreadable. "How long?" he asked softly, dangerously. "Have you two been whispering in here?" His voice sent a chill crawling down my spine. The glass bottle slipped slightly in my grasp, and I tightened my hold before it shattered. The walls of my marriage were crumbling, piece by piece, and he had heard enough to know. Daniel's gaze cut through the dim kitchen light, his expression unreadable, though his jaw twitched with restrained fury. Evelyn straightened, her confidence faltering for the first time. I felt trapped between them, the air thick with things unspoken. "So," Daniel said finally, his voice smooth but cold, "my wife sneaks away from her own anniversary dinner to share secrets with an uninvited guest." He stepped inside, closing the distance, the sound of the doorframe creaking behind him like a warning. Evelyn met his eyes without flinching. "She deserves to know the truth." His laugh was low, dangerous. "Truth? You wouldn't recognize truth if it was choking you." I tried to step between them, but my hands shook. "Please, let's just go back, Claire." Daniel snapped, his tone sharp enough to slice through me. His sudden shift made my heart lurch. His voice softened a beat later, dripping with charm. "You've let this woman fill your head with poison. Haven't I always taken care of you?" I opened my mouth, but Evelyn spoke first. "Taken care? Or controlled?" That was the spark. Daniel's hand shot out, sweeping across the counter. The wine glass I had set there earlier crashed to the floor, shards scattering like tiny knives. Red wine splashed across the tile, thick and dark, spreading like a wound. For a moment, none of us moved. The only sound was the slow drip of liquid sliding toward my feet. I stared at the mess, my breath shallow. It looked too much like blood. Blood. Daniel's chest heaved, his mask slipping. For just a moment, I saw something raw in his eyes. Rage. Yes, but also something unhinged. Something I couldn't reconcile with the man who once kissed me beneath 1,000 stars. "Accidents happen," he muttered, though his fists clenched at his sides. Evelyn bent down, her voice calm but firm. "This isn't an accident, Claire. This is who he is." Her words sank deep, twisting inside me. Memories surfaced. The slammed doors, the apologies that never matched his actions. The way I'd convinced myself love meant endurance. Had I been rewriting my own history to survive him? Daniel's shadow loomed over both of us. His smile returned, brittle, controlled. "Dinner isn't over," he said. "And neither is this conversation." The wine kept spreading, a silent promise of what was still to come. The shattered glass remained scattered across the floor, the wine staining the grout like an accusation neither of us could clean away. I crouched, gathering the shards with trembling fingers, desperate to do anything but look at Daniel. Evelyn, however, had no such hesitation. She fixed her gaze on him as if daring him to strike. "You won't silence me this time," she said, her voice steady. Daniel's eyes narrowed. "You think barging into my home gives you that right?" His tone was smooth, rehearsed, like he was playing to an invisible audience. But Evelyn didn't flinch. She turned to me. Claire, you deserve to know who you married. I was with him once. Years ago. I thought it was love. He knew exactly how to make me feel chosen, wanted, like no one else mattered. But behind closed doors, the mask slipped. He had a temper that frightened me more than I could admit at the time. That temper nearly cost me my life. Her words sliced through the kitchen air. I froze, a shard of glass cutting my palm, though the sting barely registered. That's not true, I whispered, more to myself than her. Daniel crouched beside me, his hand brushing mine as he plucked the glass from my grip. His voice lowered, honeyed, dangerous. You don't believe her, do you? You know me better than anyone. You know I would never hurt you. But Evelyn's voice pressed harder, insistent. Do you, Claire? Do you really know him? Ask him about the night in Crestwood. Ask him about the man who disappeared after confronting him. The police suspected violence, but nothing stuck because he always knew how to smile, how to charm. My chest tightened. Daniel, I breathed, searching his face for denial, for explanation, for anything that didn't confirm the dread clawing at me. His jaw tightened, but his eyes softened as he cupped my chin. She's trying to destroy us, Claire. Don't let her. You're the only good thing I've ever had. Don't throw it away over lies. His words wrapped around me like chains, soothing, confining, suffocating all at once. I wanted to believe him, to cling to the man I once trusted. But Evelyn's stare pierced me. She escaped, Evelyn said quietly. But you still can. The room swayed around me, shadows flickering like restless spirits. I couldn't tell where the truth ended and manipulation began. And then Daniel stood, his silhouette towering. His voice was calm, but his eyes burned. Enough, nobody's leaving tonight. I moved toward the front door, heart pounding, desperate for a breath of air, for the illusion of safety. The key wouldn't turn. I jiggled the handle. Locked. My hands shook, the metal cold against my skin, a physical confirmation of the fear already gnawing at my chest. Daniel, I called, trying to keep my voice steady. The door, it won't open. He emerged from the kitchen, casual, unhurried, his expression unreadable. It's late, he said softly, as though that explained everything. We'll stay in tonight. Why rush the celebration? Late? I whispered, the word trembling. Daniel, you locked us in. His smile returned, thin, controlled. It's for our protection, Claire, you, me, and this wonderful guest, he added, gesturing toward Evelyn, who remained unnervingly calm. I swallowed hard, trying to force reason to match the terror rising in me. This wasn't protection. This was a trap. Every glance between Daniel and Evelyn sent shivers down my spine. There was history here, a silent language of unspoken threats and hidden alliances. I realized with a sinking dread that I had been the last person in the world to understand who Daniel truly was. The walls of the house closed in. Shadows stretched long from the candlelight, flickering across corners that had always felt safe. Now every hallway seemed to pulse, every closed door a potential threat. Even the familiar creak of the floorboards felt like a warning. I backed toward the living room, scanning for anything that could give me leverage, anything that could offer escape. But Daniel's presence filled every space. His eyes followed me, soft and warm in a way that belied the danger coiled beneath. Evelyn's gaze met mine, steady, unwavering. You need to pay attention now, she whispered, her voice carrying the weight of someone who had seen the worst and survived. I felt trapped, not just physically but psychologically. Every word, every pause, every subtle motion between them spoke volumes. My marriage, the life I had thought I knew, was a facade. The perfect anniversary had become a cage, and I was its unwilling prisoner. The key jiggled again in my mind, the idea of escape flickering like the dying candle flames. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to breathe. Tonight was no longer about celebration. Tonight was survival. The air in the living room felt electric, charged with a tension that had been building all night. Daniel's eyes flashed with something I had never dared name aloud, raw, unrestrained fury. Every word, every look he had directed at me since dinner now crystallized into a single terrifying truth. He was capable of far more than I had imagined. You think you can defy me? He snapped, his voice slicing through the room like a knife. After everything I've done for you? I instinctively stepped back, my palms pressed against the wall as the panic clawed at my chest. Evelyn moved beside me, a silent shield, her presence a steadying force. But even she looked wary, calculating every possible move. Daniel lunged suddenly, a movement so fast it left me breathless. I stumbled, narrowly avoiding his grasp as he reached for me. Wine from the earlier spill still clung to the tile, making my footing treacherous. "Claire!" Evelyn shouted, grabbing a nearby chair and swinging it just enough to divert his momentum. He staggered slightly, but the look in his eyes was unyielding, like a predator cornered and enraged. Fear surged through me, sharper and more immediate than anything I had felt before. I realized that negotiation, reasoning, and charm had failed. This was now raw survival. I grabbed the nearest object, a heavy vase, and raised it defensively. My hands shook violently, but I didn't lower it. Daniel's expression twisted from rage to disbelief. "You'd do this to me?" he hissed. "After all these years? You've left me no choice." I yelled back, my voice breaking. "This ends tonight." Evelyn joined my side, her movements deliberate, efficient. Together we created a fragile barrier between us and him, a line drawn in the middle of the room. Daniel's fury exploded, a combination of words and movement that battered the walls and echoed through the house. The living room, once a place of comfort, became a battlefield. Every corner, every shadow, every flickering candle added to the sense of chaos. And yet, in the midst of fear and adrenaline, I saw things clearly. Daniel's charm was just a veneer, Evelyn's courage unshakable, and my own will, my survival instinct far stronger than I had believed. By the time the first punch of reality landed, I knew there was no going back. The night had finally torn itself open, revealing the raw, terrifying truth of who we all were. The living room was still. The air, thick with the scent of spilled wine and sweat, hung heavy around us. I sank onto the couch, hands pressed against my face, trying to steady my trembling. Evelyn crouched beside me, her own breathing ragged but her eyes alert, scanning the room. Daniel lay on the floor, motionless, his dark suit smeared with the remnants of the shattered wine glass. For a moment I couldn't process what had happened. Had he fainted? Or was this what silence looked like after rage? My palms were sticky with shards of glass I hadn't managed to pick up. Each one seemed to echo the night's chaos, a tiny reminder of how close we had come to losing control completely. I can't believe this," I whispered, voice barely audible. Evelyn placed a firm hand on my shoulder. "You did what you had to," she said, steady and unwavering. "He came at you. It was self-defense. Don't let the fear make you doubt that." I nodded, but doubt gnawed at the edges of my mind. Was it really enough? Would anyone else see it the same way? The law, the neighbors, the people who had smiled at us in passing. Would they understand the danger I had lived with? Evelyn stood slowly, brushing off her dress. "We need to think clearly. This isn't over yet. Not until help arrives." I rose to my feet, my legs weak beneath me. The house that had once been a sanctuary now felt like a tomb of memories, each one tainted by the revelation of who Daniel truly was. 10 years of marriage, what I had believed to be love, trust, stability, had dissolved in a night of terror. My gaze fell on him, sprawled across the floor. The man I had married, the man whose charm had fooled me for a decade, looked small, defeated, and frighteningly human. I sank back into the couch, trying to gather my thoughts, but the questions kept coming. How many lies had I unknowingly swallowed? How much danger had I ignored? And now, with him motionless, what would justice demand? Evelyn crouched again, her voice quiet but firm. "Whatever comes next, we face it together. You survived tonight, Claire. That's the first step." The candles flickered, their flames dancing over the scarred floor, over the remnants of our once perfect anniversary. Silence reigned, yet it was only temporary. The night had ended, but its echoes promised that the truth and its consequences were far from over. The sound of sirens pierced the night, sharp and unrelenting. Red and blue lights danced through the living room windows, casting frantic shadows over the remnants of the shattered wine, the broken glass, and the overturned chairs. My chest tightened as uniformed officers filed into the house, their presence both a relief and a confirmation of the chaos we could no longer contain alone. "Ma'am, are you all right?" one of them asked, concern laced with caution. I nodded numbly, my hands still sticky with wine and fear. Evelyn stayed close behind me, her hand brushing briefly against mine, a silent reminder that I was not alone. Daniel lay where he had fallen, now surrounded by officers who assessed him with professional detachment. The charm and menace that had defined him moments before were gone, replaced by the cold scrutiny of law enforcement. Detectives began questioning Evelyn first, their pens scratching over notes as she recounted years of half-hidden truths. Daniel's temper, his manipulation, the suspicions she had raised years ago about missing people, rumors no one had dared investigate. Then they turned to me. My voice trembled as I described the night's events, from the careful preparations of our anniversary dinner, to the intrusion, the threats, and finally, the confrontation. Each word peeled away the final layers of illusion I had held onto for a decade. As the officers examined the house, photographs and evidence were taken, fragments of my life with Daniel cataloged as proof of his dangerous past. Names, dates, places, all the hidden threads he had woven into our marriage, were being pulled into the harsh light of truth. I stepped toward the dining room, my eyes drawn to the table. Candles burned low, wine-stained cloth clinging to the surface, shards of glass still scattered like fallen stars. What had once been a symbol of celebration, of devotion and love, now looked like a crime scene frozen in time. Sitting in the chair where I had first felt unease, I traced the edge of the table, imagining the years of secrets it had silently witnessed. Every toast, every smile, every whispered apology, now meaningless. The police spoke around me, Evelyn recounted quietly, and I felt the weight of reality settle like a stone. My marriage had been a facade. The man I had loved, the life I had cherished, had been built on lies, manipulation, and danger, and yet despite the horror, I was here, alive, watching the final remnants of what I once believed in crumble into silence.